Hello and welcome to part 3 of building an Art Deco skyscraper with Planet Coaster. And in this episode I build some of the main body of the tower, which consists of trying to work out how to integrate the ride that's in the center of the building within the building. And I experimented and I realized it would be a cool idea at some point to make it so the middle of the tower is see-through and give it like an elevator-like effect. So what this episode mainly consists of is me using a technique which I don't often use, but I have to use a lot in this build, which is more or less Control-D or copy and paste, as I call it. So what I do is I make one big part that is full of detail and is exactly as I need it, and then I copy it and rotate it as well as I can, to make it perfect, and create squares and cubes and shapes like that. I don't think it would be as easy or as fun to make this build if I couldn't do that, because I couldn't really imagine myself creating, like as you can see here, all these arches and stuff in detail on 4 different sides. That just sounds redonkulous to me. So I wanted to use this project to take advantage of this technique, because when you're making smaller houses, you don't really need to worry about that as much. At least I don't care about detailing each side as much, because it's not as much, and it can be quite fun. My next build, which as I said in the last episode is a gatehouse, I actually am building a smaller sort of manor, Victorian-like manor. And the corner buildings are all going to be copy and pasted as well, just to save time, but also because I want to see if it can give a good effect, because the way I approach things is more like an artist, and I want to make each different thing as different as possible, but I don't know how interesting that is to watch in time-lapse form. I think, I'm trying to think of you guys, the viewers. I'm trying to think of what you don't mind seeing and what you do mind seeing, and I'm sure a lot of you will roll your eyes if you saw me create the tower I'm creating now exactly again on the other side. I think everyone can be saved from that. Well, there are some advantages, like I mentioned, to use this technique, but there are also quite a lot of disadvantages. And the main disadvantage I have is trying to make everything symmetrical when you line it up, when you copy and paste them. There's not really a good grid for that, at least one I could see, so I'm just really going through trial and error, just seeing what looks good. It probably isn't exactly perfectly shaped at each side, but I did the best I could. But there are some problems you will see later on in the build, which show one side some of the roof of the tower, of the top bit of the tower, isn't aligned properly, and there was nothing I could do about that, because I had chosen to put a ride in the center of this building, and that means there are certain parts that I actually can't build with the modular building because it's in the way of the ride. I would have actually just, if I could build anywhere, I would have. It doesn't matter much to me. But I think they're going for some level of realism like that in this game, and I commend it. It's useful as well to know that your ride will be going, the legs of your people will be going through building walls and stuff, because that's not pretty cool to me. But I would like a mod or something, or a way to override that, maybe in the future. I can work with it for now, but it's okay. It's okay. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. These columns you see I put in now, since they didn't attach to the wall, I just gave up on that. I might go back later, because when I copy and pasted this slice, those didn't copy and paste, as you can see. Or as you will see, I think I just deleted the copy and paste, but you will see in the future that those, you see how they look see-through? It means it's not attached to the building. It's in a light blue see-through color, those columns, and I'm annoyed that I can't replace that. I think I used the wrong column. I think there is a column that allows you to do that. Anyway, I didn't actually end up putting those back in for the other sides, and I really should have, and in the promotional piece you can see it, but I think I will go off camera, because I finished this already. I'm going to go off camera and put those in, because they're now bugging me. They're now setting off my OCD. So yeah, I've talked enough to go through most of this tower-like thing. I was having a lot of, I was a bit tricky placing certain parts now in the corners and stuff. It was a bit easier before, but then again, there are so many ways of placing stuff that are much easier now that they were fucking pretty much impossible before. Oops, sorry for swearing. I hope you don't care that I swear. Uh, you've been watching my channel, you probably know that comment's about. So yeah, once this is done at the top, which I'm putting in these columns, I love those pieces. One of my favorite pieces for making lots of different things. You can make so many different things out of those pieces. I digress. You will see me struggle to copy and paste it. When you look at a lot of these Art Deco skyscrapers, it's quite rare that they are just one long tower without any protrusions or anything. The way I see them is that they're many different towers sort of joined together at different levels. And they remind me a bit of the way smaller buildings are built in that regard. I think it's a novel design that we don't really approach these days. These days people tend to just build modern skyscrapers which are mainly blocky, depending on the shape, but they're just usually one solid piece with some protrusions. But the attention to detail from the 1930s skyscrapers is actually quite phenomenal. I don't know, I haven't been to a lot of these buildings, but I mean in London we have a lot of examples too, but they're just not as tall. But there are so many buildings that have such elaborate lobbies, such beautiful carvings on everything. But New York is a prime example of that, I think. Of course, I don't want to miss out other cities that do that. There are many cities that actually do that. There's Chicago, for one, the place that invented the skyscraper, has lots of really lovely examples. And if you look through history books, like I have, because I'm obsessed with buildings, there are so many beautiful buildings that are from New York and Chicago that they destroyed completely to make way for other buildings. The Empire State Building was one of them. They had a huge building there, and they destroyed that. I think the Chrysler Building was the original building was destroyed for the Chrysler. So many buildings that I always think to myself when I look at New York skylines, thinking, what could have been? What could have been there? Because some of the old skyline buildings are really beautiful, and you don't see them anymore because they were destroyed. Oh well. And I'm digressing quite a lot. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I think some of you might enjoy me talking about Art Deco architecture, which to me is quite a bit of a passion. I've always, since I was a kid, drawn skyscrapers, and biggest city inspiration to me has always been New York. I know it's cliche and boring to say, but I think the architecture in New York is so phenomenally beautiful, and it's a shame that in London, when the time that these sort of skyscrapers became very popular, that London's built on clay and couldn't really support these kind of buildings. Otherwise, I always dreamed to see that there could have been buildings in London like that. But alas, New York's quite unique in the fact that it's on a bed of granite, and that's why I think, don't quote me on that, I'm talking out of my butt at the moment, but it's built on granite, so you can drill really deep into the ground and give these structures enough space to grow, unlike in London, unfortunately. At least that's what I've been told. So now I have copied and pasted the towers, as you can see, and this is where I got the idea for having the middle section having these arches so you can see through, sort of like an elevator. And if you look at the very beginning of the video, I always put a little promo, and you can, I think at nighttime you can see it whizzing up and down, and it gives a lovely effect of an elevator. I mean, I was a bit inspired by the House of Horrors. What's it called in Disney World? There's a building that's basically a haunted hotel, like a Gothic haunted hotel, and it drops you. I've always wanted to go to that particular theme park. Never went to Disneyland Florida. Always wanted to as a kid. I was really upset when I didn't. Yeah, I was inspired by that. I've always wanted to ride that ride because I hate these drop-down rides. I really hate heights, but the idea of it being inside a building somehow makes it less scary to me. Anyway, I digress. And as you can see, I use this technique to line everything up by making one section have a roof that goes around and trying to line it up the best I could. That's the best method I learned to do that. It's very difficult to align it all up. Another important thing is to don't turn under any circumstances the paste, because it will always align perfectly with the piece that you've copied. So if I only turn directions at the very end when some bits don't mix together, but I wonder why it doesn't work sometimes, because it's mathematically accurate, like all the pieces are the same size and they should theoretically piece together at the same points. But I think sometimes my detailing isn't 100% accurate, and that's where sometimes I try to align things based on detailing and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oh well, and I think I've talked enough for this episode. I think I'm gonna call it a day there, and you will see me in part 4, where I think hopefully I begin on the crown. If by the end of this video the main building body is finished, you'll see the crown soon. And the series isn't turning out as long as I thought it would be. Maybe the copy and paste tool is good enough, so I shall see you then. Wow, it's nice of you to watch the whole video, and thank you for watching. If you want to see more, you can click on one of those boxes, and you can subscribe if you want, and or you could watch other videos and do other things. Bye!